What if solving the affordability crisis for young people and solving the climate crisis in buildings require the same shift in systems? Today, we're exploring the intersection of housing, materials, and the next generation with Anthony Guerrero, the new executive director of Mindful Materials, a professor at Columbia University with a history of working at large environmental nonprofits, including Earth Justice and NRDC, and the founder of Sustainaprise. Welcome to the show, Anthony. It's so great to have you here.
Hey, Richard. Good to be here. Glad that we are able to do this, that it finally came
Yeah.
aligned.
Anthony has spent his career reimagining how organizations inhabit space, from his leadership roles at NRDC and Earth Justice to his current work at Mindful Materials. He's helping to shape a shared language that connects transparency, carbon, and equity across the built environment. And at the same time, through Sustainaprise, he's advancing adaptive reuse, modular housing, and community focused real estate models that tackle affordability and belonging for young people. I'm Richard Garrett, and today we'll explore how adaptive reuse and modular housing can unlock affordability and belonging for young people, why the common materials framework is reshaping transparency and collaboration across the building industry, and how systems thinking can connect housing, materials, and equity into one regenerative story. Hey, Anthony,
Yeah.
for young people entering the workforce today, affordability and access feels like a moving target. How did your journey through real estate and sustainability shape your view of what's possible for the next generation?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Richard. I think, well, let me just say, you said a lot and inspiring in that little bit. I don't know if we're going to get to all of that. I could just tell you, listen, I'm working on two really big problems that I'm really passionate about. And, the one you're talking about now with the Sustainaprise, where, you know, I'll tell you the problem. The way I see it is I have two young men, 21 years old, and but in general, I hear from students and stuff, and graduate students, and just in general, I'm sure you've probably heard the same thing. It's just impossible to afford a house being a younger professional. I mean, older professionals are having the same
Yeah,
problem,
I
but
know. I'm like, wait,
right?
I'm an
Yeah,
older professional.
I'm
I
struggling
can't
too.
afford a
I'm
house.
struggling too, but look, I think the median age to own a place is 37 now. It's moved up significantly, and
Mm,
younger folks don't even have a chance. And that's a travesty for them and for the economy, for the global economy. I mean, like, if you can't participate in capital wealth, then, I'm not, you're already at a disadvantage. And I
mhm.
see my two young sons, my two young boys experiencing this. I see it all over, and I think it's a travesty. And I'm working on doing my best to do some little impact on improving that standard, to lowering the median age of owning housing, capital wealth, as I would call it. And frankly, the way I've been doing it, I've been exploring different models and everything. The thing I've seemed to have been focused in on, which, Richard, I don't want to exaggerate anything. It's a pretty big. What do you say? You shoot for the stars, you get the moon, or something. It's like a
Yeah,
moonshot, right? I'd like to take some of these vacant commercial office buildings and convert them to residential. There's a lot of people saying that, and a lot of people saying that that's expensive and hard to do, which is true. And I'd like to convert them to co-living spaces where younger professionals can own a younger,
yeah.
smaller housing unit in a place that shares amenities. Not talking about sharing showers or kitchens, or no, I'm not talking about dorm living. I'm talking about smaller spaces, having, sleeping spaces, a living room, a small kitchen, all your private unit, but also sharing, gym amenities, core access to different things that we can share, basically, right? Co-living. It's a
Mhm.
proven model, but an owned model. And I really think that could resonate with a lot of young folks because really it's a toehold into investment, real estate investment,
Mm-hmm.
and also you're already kind of experienced, you're used to that. Think of like, I don't know your experience, Richard, but I'll take a guess that maybe you might have roommated with folks when you were young to
Mm-hmm.
rent a
Mm-hmm.
space, and
Mm-hmm.
I know my experience. Well, I was in the Marine Corps, so I lived with a bunch of people that I didn't know, and we got things done. But I know that folks share a house, they rent, they probably do that for 5 years or so, and get out without owning any property. That investment is just paying towards somebody else's mortgage, and hopefully they're still friends with their roommates, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and so I think looking at that situation and trying to improve that is where I'm spending some of my time.
Hey, you've said something that's really gotten my brain storming here, and it's kind of relevant to the conversation around Gen Xers that I chat with. And it's even now that we're kind of post-COVID, post-pandemic, do you find when you look at your two sons and particularly their friends and their generation, and the development of social skills across their generation, both being primarily children in a digital age, but then not always getting that roommate experience where you and I may have had plenty of arguments over like cereal bowls in the sink or had to work to negotiate bills or, talk about common areas and standards of living. Do you find that this model that you're envisioning would also help some of the social skill building that we may not get just by the fact that we can't be in this kind of place of belonging?
Yeah, that's interesting. It correlates with something I learned. First off, let me just say, when I like what you said about the cereal bowl. There's nothing worse. There's no worse roommate than one that doesn't wash their cereal bowl when they have frosted flakes, right? Dried frosted flakes is the worst thing ever. Um, so just I don't know. I don't know where you take that. There's no excuse. I think we're off track. I lost track. I did, having this idea, I did a few focus groups with some grad students, and actually something I was really surprised about that came out that resonated, and I didn't really catch on to something that you're just mentioning. It's the sense of belonging and loneliness is something that
Mm-hmm.
actually this idea of co-living really taps into solving this issue that younger folks are having. I'd love to dive more into that research, but I've just heard from focus groups from young folks that the idea of being isolated is a challenge right now. It's causing anxiety, and this when I bring this idea of co-living where you're sharing amenities seems
Mm-hmm.
to reassure folks that they would have more opportunities to be in a place of belonging. Creating community is basically, I think, what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying here. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that interesting, and I've been thinking a lot about that as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that in my mind, having a roommate experience for half my life, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, I think this idea of co-living, I've been really following it. I've been working with some designers to design some concepts. But the idea, I mean, think about roommating. Sometimes you don't have the privacy that you need, and also, but you do have the opportunity to be with folks. I mean, you get to share spaces, so you don't really get to be too lonely, and even you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of know they're outside of your room. I think this idea where you have your own private space, locked door, but you can choose to go outside and share amenities. I'm thinking of what those amenities would be. Gym is obviously something people touch on, but like dining room spaces where you can, have Friendsgiving or Thanksgiving, you can invite family over. There's other ways to think about co-living where it's not just kind of a dorm environment,
Mm-hmm.
but is more activated and able to create that community with your fellow co-living space neighbors.
And you mentioned it's an ownership model that you're envisioning, right?
Yeah, I think that's the unique thing. Actually, I've been doing. uh, I mean, that's the hardest part. And believe me, I'm not the only one that's thought of co-living spaces. There's plenty in Boston and DC, across the globe. Um, I mean, there are a lot of places, but most of them are renting models. And what I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at is an ownership model. And actually, it's probably more skewed towards some kind of co-op where you're owning shares of the space
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
really thinking that they're,
I can envision myself there, and even as you start to graduate out of those spaces, you have this core friend group both in the building and in your life that an ownership model makes it exciting to go, hey, my partner and I are moving up in space and I've got this place for sale. Would you like to buy it? And then
yeah,
the ownership model just happens so quickly there because you've got built-in market for young people, young professionals who could fill this space, and then professionals as they sort of graduate out of it can talk up how exciting it is um, and kind of pass it on almost to the next generation, if you will, the next
yeah,
the next set of
that's
owners.
that's really the biggest challenge, right? And what is that space, a co-living space, going to appreciate as much as your traditional
Hmm. Hmm.
residential space, as much as that would? And I'm saying that it would, and that's the things we're thinking through now.
As you're walking through town, what types of spaces do you see that you're like, man, that would be a great opportunity for this kind of model? Like you've mentioned vacant office spaces. I've seen this. It's not the same kind of model, but as kind of malls in America become less populated with people, they're
Hmm.
starting to look at how to transition them. What kinds of underused commercial real estates or vacant offices, when you walk around, you're like, that's it. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for. What is that vision for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting you said that. When you have ideas like this and you're looking in New York City and you're walking through Manhattan, like every building's an interesting puzzle
Possibility.
to solve. Yeah, it's a possibility. And I can see this idea fitting anywhere. Market realities. I'm looking for a vacant commercial office building that's struggling. That's not, the One Bryant Park or something. Like something that's I can have a venture to afford to purchase and retrofit. And those are looking like smaller buildings, class B or C, and probably not higher than 10 stories.
So we jumped right into the middle of our conversation here because I'm excited to talk to you about this, but I actually want to know if you could tell me what sparked this? What sparked this idea for you? Was it seeing life through your children's eyes? What was the lens or pathway that brought you here, Anthony? How did you
Yeah,
get here?
Richard, I mean, I think it's a lot of amalgamation of a lot of things. Yes, one, I think deeply all the time about, my children and their friends and how they're going to get along in this world. And um, frankly, I mean, you're part of the environmental community. Sometimes you get the feeling we've screwed the younger generations, Sorry, are we allowed to curse on your podcast
Absolutely.
or? But, and they're really getting the short end of the stick, and the economy is just one piece of it. And, my heart goes out to young folks who are all of a sudden realizing they can barely, I think about New York because that's where I live, but, you know, kids need to move further away from even Bushwick to find an affordable house. And then they're going to go to Manhattan. They're going to waste a lot of their day in commuting, and that's just hard. And, so I think about that, and I do think it's travesty that the median age of owning a property is going up. It's a big part of our idea of contributing to society or taking part of society is owning a place. That's my perspective. And so, that kind of pains my heart. Also, my work experience has been how to activate commercial real estate, for
Hmm.
how to make these commercial offices run efficiently and effectively and to make people's work experience healthy and productive. Most of the time
So
it's
you are
productive and healthy. And that experience, along with just think of the overall macro issue that we're talking about, should be solvable. The macro issue is we have a bunch of vacant office buildings. We don't know what to do with them. We
Mm-hmm.
have an affordable housing crisis on the other side. We don't have enough housing. Like there seems to be very obvious 1+1 = 2. There's some challenges there, but it should be a problem we should be able to solve. And this is what has made me very interested in it and very focused in it. And look, Richard, the development and real estate space is a very, sharp elbow kind of rough space to play in, and so it's been an interesting journey.
Is this personal? Is this a personal journey for you?
Yeah, I like both of the work that I'm doing, both at Mindful Materials and Sustainability, because it is personal. Things that I'm passionate about, that I get the opportunity to work on these problems. Like I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't imagine myself working on. Well, I can't imagine what I would be working on besides these two things. And so, yeah, I do mix business with pleasure or personal. Yeah, whatever that saying is.
Passion. You're mixing
Passion.
business
Yeah,
with passion.
yeah, exactly. Like, how can you not be passionate about what you're working on? You're putting so much time in your day on getting that paycheck. It's got to be something you're passionate about, from my perspective, anyways.
Have you Passion is something that's really personal and unique. It's can be hard to cultivate at times as well, particularly in some of the industry. You've kind of mentioned the sharp elbow. You've mentioned some challenges that we have in building communities and working together. How do you see passion as a through line in your work? What is that thread that's tying together your work experience? Passion?
I don't know. Passion's an interesting word, Richard, because you could make yourself passionate about something, right? I'm sometimes passionate about a problem, not the work, but a problem. I think that's interesting. The through line, I think, is, I'll say this, workplace experience. I'm not so passionate about. I like to solve the
You're
problem. Like,
good at it, but
yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah. But it was at a certain point just taking away a lot of energy from me because there wasn't this like spark that I had to doing that
Mm,
work, and look, by no means am I taking away from the challenge of that and just like the importance of having good workplace experience, people working on that problem. But it just wasn't something I was passionate about solving. But
mhm.
solving, this problem about affordable housing, which a lot of people are working on, a lot of good people. I talk to so many smart and well-meaning and just like, yeah, passionate people that you could see it in their eyes and their composure, and they're taking the tact of making it affordable for families, and I think that's so important. And I
Mm,
also
mhm.
see that a lot of the demand is from younger professionals, and that's what I've been looking at.
That feels like
Did I answer
fuel
your
for
question? Yeah.
passion. I think so. Yeah, I'm seeing through your lens there. And it's so
But
exciting.
also, look, I just put one foot in front of the other, like every day, coming to work, get some work done.
Oh, and we've talked about that over even this summer. Just
Yeah.
one foot in
Right.
front of the other. Just try to make it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Consistent. If you have consistency and passion, and, like you're solving, you can solve a lot of good things.
So I think I can maybe start to literally and figuratively start to tie this together and kind of weaving in materials into the conversation. So this is another area that I'm passionate about and have gotten to connect with you on professionally is where materials transparency and accountability are going in our industry. A bit of
Yeah.
a conversational pivot here, but I'd love to learn more about your work as the executive director of Mindful Materials, near and dear to my heart. And then tell me a little more about what's exciting that you see as you've been in your role for a few weeks now.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we move on
Oh,
from
please.
Sustainaprise, the one thing I was thinking about is, you're talking about sustainability, and I'm just sharing with you the problem we're trying to solve with regards to bringing down the median age of ownership. And also, I think you wanted me to touch on like how is a sustainability problem. I'm sure most of your audience knows why, but, just to reinforce that it's building reuse, that we're ensuring that these vacant buildings are being used reuse before building new buildings, and just the efficiencies you can get with a co-living type of space in the sense that you're using similar mechanicals, singular mechanical systems, and that you're being more efficient with the use of space. These are all sustainability strategies that, have come into custom of talking about, being in the environmental space. So just wanted to say that before we left that.
Well, no, I don't want to leave that. Maybe we'd have to part two for.
Yeah, sure.
So, talk to me about adaptive reuse. I've learned a new phrase within the last 6 months or so of sufficiency. I didn't have a concept of sufficiency of using what we have. Like, we already have this, it's already built. So, tell me a little more. We touched on some of the building types as you walk around town, but give me a little more deep dive into adaptive reuse. What does it mean to transform a space from one use to another?
Yeah. Well, what I'm meaning is, what we were just saying a moment ago is these commercial office buildings. They're designed for multiple tenants who don't need to worry about living spaces and restrooms and things like that. Sleeping spaces, restrooms, things like that. And so when you reuse that commercial office building because it's vacant, it's got no more demand, you convert it to residential space. That's adapting it and reusing it for something else. I'm very aware there's like specific definitions for things, but this is what I'm talking about when I say adaptive reuse. And another
Mm-hmm.
thing is, modular housing or where your prefabricated housing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where it's being made in the shop and then being sent to the site location is something that we're exploring. But it's really interesting because it's really looking at vertical housing where you are stacking these prefabricated spaces one on top of the other. It's not as simple as that, but that's something
Mm-hmm.
we're exploring as well. But that's a little less explored than what we're trying to do with commercial office buildings.
Mm-hmm. I can see that clearly, like building them in a factory or
Right.
workplace, assembling them on site. They come kitted in with roughed in with
Exactly.
electrical, roughed in with plumbing, and you just connect them into the larger unit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty
Which is
fantastic.
pretty well proven. I mean, there's still a lot of space to grow there, but pretty well proven when it's a single family home. But the idea of stacking above, and creating a building is interesting looking at that.
So cool.
Yeah, right. Something I never thought I'd be talking about when I was
Right? But
15.
kind of back, you're answering in long form. One of my earlier questions is, "How did you get here?" And I get this. Like, I
Right.
didn't expect to be here.
That's a really interesting question, Richard. I think about it all the time because I was born in Woodland, California. It's like a small farm town, and we were actually we weren't rich, we were quite poor, right? And so when I think back that I got from that, barely graduating high school, jumping into the Marine Corps, like I think it was either the Marine Corps, our like, I don't know where my path was going, but it seems like once I got in the Marine Corps, things started to click. Maybe I matured and then I was able to kind of start getting more serious about, what I was doing with my life. And,
Hmm.
from there, um, eventually moved into, then I took my job at NRDC where there's a lot of smart, hardworking individuals who are just trying to make the world a better place, which is, pretty phenomenal. They're trying to sue polluters and ensure that our water's clean and our air's clean and all that. It's like, how can you not get inspired by those folks? And so that's kind of where my career took off in this area
Have you ever felt imposter syndrome along your career?
all the time. Filling in now.
Yeah, you and me both.
You're a great podcaster, Richard.
But that's really something that is one of the core topics of this podcast is dealing with eco-anxiety, dealing with that imposter syndrome, dealing with the conversations from your in-laws who go, "Oh, you're in green building. Must suck to be you right now." So that happened to me recently. So, but I'm really listening in our conversation for what activated you along the way, what sort of guided your path. Was it a direct path? You mentioned NRDC. I know you from working together at Earth Justice as well, but was that a direct path for you? How did you end up even in that place?
Okay. Well, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went back to school. I thought I was going to be an author of all things. I'm eventually going to write a book. I will.
Oh, okay, you already are. We're
But I graduated with English lit theory, and then I was hunting for a job in, of all places, New York City, and I finally got a job with USA Networks. At that time, it was like a startup, but USA, the channel, and I just was along for the ride of this like startup that just exploded into this very successful cable channel. And then I was recruited from there to Oxygen Media, who was just a startup cable channel, and it exploded to being a really great cable channel. Eventually got purchased by NBC Universal. And, in both of those type startup environments, I got well known for just operationally being really good with real estate and optimizing real operations in real estate. And so NRDC recruited me over from Oxygen Media to kind of help with optimizing their operations. So I wasn't really involved in the environmental community at that time.
mm.
It was at NRDC where, just being an avid reader, I would read a brief or something from the copier. They would always print like their brief, and it'd just be left on the copier, and I'd go to pick up a copy of something that I printed out, and then I'd see this brief, and I'd be like, "What? There's poisons in our water, and our children are being, they're being poisoned by just our water, our drinking water." Like, I had to read more, and just get more frustrated. Sometimes I'd go to the copier in a happy mood, going to get the printout that I wanted, and come back all upset because like I read a brief about how terrible our drinking water was, and things like that.
Mhm.
And so that got me passionate about it. Peter Lehner, who was the executive director at NRDC, I was trying to get into a B school at Columbia, and he mentioned you should try this sustainability program. It was at Columbia, and I said, "Oh, this is my ticket in," and I went, and I just really enjoyed the subjects, and that ended up being my grad studies, and that's where that's kind
Here
of
you are
the
now.
dotted line or the curvy line.
Yeah, and it is a curvy line, right? I learned along my path, it's not a ladder of success, it's a lattice. It goes
Hmm.
up and down and back and around and sometimes backwards and downwards and then mostly up.
Yeah, actually,
Where
when
you
I was
have
in high school, I wanted to be a priest of all things. I don't know. I just had a really, well, I guess the consistent thing is I've always had a sense of wanting to have purpose in whatever I do, passion,
mm.
purpose, commitment.
You just answered my question earlier, the through line,
Hmm.
the passion, commitment to others, wanting to
See what I'm telling you? You're a great podcaster.
create community, like we're doing all the things, my friend. Well, I certainly want to be able to talk about your work at Mindful
Mindful.
Materials. We could spend a whole nother hour just talking about that. I get all jazzed up and fired up,
Oh, yeah,
but
let's talk about it.
if you would explain like I'm five, the common materials framework, like break it down for me here. I want to be able to understand and tell it to others. So
Okay.
me help me understand what your role is as executive director, a little bit for our listeners who may not know mindful materials, but would you unpack the common materials framework for me?
Yeah. Well, I got to strap in for this because, I
I'm
started
locked.
on,
I've got my belt on.
I started Mindful July 7th, and, haven't looked back. It's just been one like quick, I mean, it's been a sprint. It's not a marathon. We're running a marathon, but it's been a sprint, and we're going to have to like keep this pace for a while. And it's been incredible. I'm riding on the, coattails of Annie Bevan, who's I've been having one-on-ones with stakeholders and stuff, and one of the stakeholders summed it up very nicely. Annie Bevins she's not built mindful materials, she's built a movement, and
Absolutely.
I think that's a really amazing way to describe that. And I'm going to get to the team in a moment. And before I do, though, I've been learning a lot too. I mean, this mindful materials has been in the biz for about 10 years, you know, and it started out with HKS, and I've met some of the folks that have been like the original, like the OGs, and that they've all just been passionate about this common problem that all materials experts are trying to solve is how do you get scale and ensuring that we're talking about materials in a transparent way, you know, what's inside of those materials. And, you know, Annie's leading this team of like super smart, young, enthusiastic
Superstars.
team members. Yeah, superstars. I mean, like, you know, you have some great people on the team. Laurel, Jen. There's two Jens on the team, so I call them the Jens, but Jen
The
Levinson
gens.
and Jen Collins and Taylor. It's just a really amazing team that is passionate about this work and have been like gas, you know, pedal to the metal, electric car, pedal to the
Exactly.
metal.
Accelerator down.
Yeah, trying to get this thing out called the Common Materials Framework. And, you know, it's every time I think I have a handle on exactly what we're doing, there's more information. So I know a lot that I know what I don't know at this point. But, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
Common Materials Framework is this framework that is organizing sustainability data in a way that is categorized in a very structured and common way so that we can be able to finally have kind of unity, harmony
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
this materials way so that we can scale because we're all asking in the same way. And it concerns itself with the kind of five buckets: climate health, human health, the ecosystem health, social health and equity, and circular economy. So five things, you know, and um, the idea is if we're all organized around these same five categories and harmonizing our asks around that in this common materials framework, then we're able to scale the materials industry and be more transparent with what's inside our materials. Now, if Annie sees
You
this
said
and says, you know, that's not at all what it is. No, I'm kidding. No, but this is this is my understanding so far. And it's been incredible to be at Mindful Materials, which is also the other thing is a convening place where we're having these great conversations and collaborating with manufacturers, owners, and designers and everyone to get to the right answers.
and it's not to kind of move through
Did
the
that help, by the
metaphor.
way?
It did, and my brain thinks in metaphors. And
Mhm.
you've said harmonize a couple of times, and so I can see there's a chorus of manufacturers and a chorus of clients and a chorus of designers, architects, engineers, etc., who all need data that is is similar but not always the same, and their asks are similar but not always the same, and so it can seem disjointed and can clash. But this kind of framework
Yeah,
allows people to sing different notes, but they're all part of the harmonic, and they're all part of the movement, if you will. You've mentioned the movement here,
yeah,
and it happens in stages, and you move through the music as you progress. But I can see that as a
yeah.
metaphor of.
That's amazing. Yeah, I like the way you've broken that down. In fact, I'll probably steal that from you a few times.
Please do.
You know, I
Trademark
would just say
pending.
like think of it like a manufacturer, like I don't know, Mohawk or interface, or you know, think of I don't know a chair, human scale. Think of human scale. Like all these different clients are asking for details of the product, and but they're asking in their own different ways, and it gets to be
Mm-hmm.
quite cumbersome and like overwhelming to be able to answer each of these clients in the way that they ask for kind of the same information. And really, the
Mm-hmm.
the why of why these clients are asking is because they're trying to make some impact in the world, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're concerning themselves with something. So if we can all standardize how that ask is, then that manufacturer at human scale is building the best chair possible is
Mm-hmm.
needs to only answer it once instead of multiple times the same thing. And then, you know, I'm more experienced from the owner side of things. Think about like from an owner, I want my build outs. Think about sustainability. I want to do this thing. I want to retrofit this building, and but I want to do the right thing. I want to have values aligned
Mm-hmm.
development, and I want to concern myself about decarbonizing and ensuring, you know, people's health is the utmost importance. And so I need to be able to um, choose materials in a way that I have all the right information to make the proper choices. One thing I keep saying is, I've been doing interior build outs for a couple decades now, and I've always been concerned about the climate, about people's health. And I've been so proud of myself. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I think about um, Grace Farms, right? And they're shining a spotlight on modern slavery. I didn't even know that's a thing, until recently. And I kind of think back to all these projects where I'm concerning about client, carbon and people's health, and yet I have no idea if our work participated in modern slavery. And so being
Mm-hmm.
able to articulate 5 common buckets of what we should be concerned about so that owners can make good decisions based on good information is something I find really valuable.
Well, and you've even called back to some of my professional experience of the 4 stages of learning, and you've mentioned one of them here. You didn't know what you didn't know before,
Yeah.
and now you know what you don't know, and it gives you the ability to learn more about that. So that's
Yeah.
pretty fantastic there.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, though, Richard. When you
I get that too.
when you know you don't know, then there's like this certain anxiety to like move really fast to learn
Mhm.
everything. And I always had to control that angst because there's just too much information to know immediately.
So that's actually another good point that's part of this podcast. Tell me about that feeling of anxiety, and I'm gonna, if go so be so bold as to call it eco anxiety.
Hmm.
Tell me, tell me what that feels like to you, and you've given me some examples of how you're responding to it. But is that also? We talked even a little bit about passion spurring you on, but does eco anxiety also give you some motivation or hesitation?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting when what do you think people mean when they say eco anxiety?
So my definition of this in my own experience is, and I didn't know what I didn't know until I started to know what I didn't know. And then I went, oh no.
Right.
And then got the feeling of how do we fix this? I think in solutions, fortunately, but I'm like, how do we fix this? How do we
Yeah.
fix this
Yeah.
now? How do we bend the curve up now? And so it spurred me on to find passion in solutions for regeneration and resilience, and
Yeah.
that's how I know you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you have a similar kind of experience, or is your eco anxiety like, oh no, we can't do this? Or is it, hell yes, we will do this? How does it lead you or encourage you or not?
Yeah.
Slash imposter syndrome, slash other anxieties that you want to build upon.
Yeah. I mean, God, there's so much to that question that you're asking. Anxiety in general is really interesting, Richard. I mean, I think about this all the time. And I think about it for my two, they're 21 and they're dealing with anxiety. Like, am I going to find a job? What am I going to do?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
and so look, here's things I've come up with. One is if the hardest thing that's ever happened to you is tying your shoes, everything that's as hard as tying your shoes is going to cause anxiety. Right.
Hmm.
And so I'm always sharing that. So you do have to push that your comfort level and the envelope to make sure that you're putting a little bit of anxiety in your life just to, discomfort. Let's not call it
Hmm.
anxiety, but
Discomfort. Yeah,
discomfort.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So that you're able to deal with those, so that you can be resilient when you
Hmm.
have anxiety, you know how to deal with it. And then, man, sometimes you got to unplug. Eco anxiety is a thing. And I do believe is a thing. And also you can amplify that anxiety to unhealthy levels by plugging into social media and the news and all of that. And like, you just need to make sure you're keeping healthy what you're seeing on your phone and on TV and stuff, because some of it is just meant to make you more anxious than you really are.
Hmm.
And then, I think the problem of, you know, the environment is a big deal and we're all working to it. And I sometimes collapse and ready to fall asleep, quite quickly at home. But I think gosh, what am I saying? I don't want to sound terrible on this part about eco anxiety, but you know, sometimes we get to a point of rage or anxiety, or so you
Hmm.
might call
Hmm.
it anxiety because of what people are saying out there and stuff like that. And I just caution people against worrying about what other people are saying. Like people are working towards solutions. And yeah, there
Hmm.
might be backtracks, but at the end of the day, we're going to solve this problem as humanity because it needs to be solved. And, if we don't solve it, the earth will solve it for us. And we're going to have to deal with those consequences. So I guess I'm an optimist more than an eco anxiety type person.
Hmm.
I
That's
don't know.
good.
How did that sound? Did I ramble? I
I
guess what I'm struggling with is I think a lot of people are dealing with anxiety, but it's art, artificial, like trumped up anxiety. No pun intended about Trump, but
mm-mm, mm-mm,
it's like
mm-mm,
it's just this anxiety be tapped into other people's, this kind of manufactured rage, so to speak.
mm-mm, mm-mm. So one of the best fortune cookies I ever received, the message inside said, "Do what you can." And
Yeah.
I'd
Gosh darn it,
love
Richard.
to.
That's all I was trying to say is that we do what we can and then we gotta just rest and move on. But yeah, and get ready for the next day. Sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Richard? Right.
It was just that. It was to kind of sum it up as like you can scale your influence, you can take action. It can be exhausting at times. It can drain you, come home and fall over. But that systems change starts at a scale that you can manage. And if I'm hearing you correctly, like take action at the scale that you can influence and then
Yeah.
work from there.
Yeah. I love that. I think I agree with that. And I would add one other thing to that is that you've also got to take care of yourself. Like, I I
Mm-hmm.
have I have a routine. I try not to let things get out of hand. Um, I have a family that cares very much for me. I keep in contact with friends and, I mean, to sound silly, but I have a dog, that, I go on
Mm-hmm.
morning
Mm-hmm.
walks with, it's just,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
things that I do besides listen to the, gloom and doom.
The doom and doom.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of summarize this portion of it. You've taught us about influence at scale, personally, professionally, community, neighborhood to the community scale. You've taught us about taking stock, literally, of our buildings and of ourselves to reimagine, recreate, reinform, renegotiate, re engage with our places and our spaces. We've touched on personal development and professional development, finding community, building community, surrounding yourself with really amazing people. You've got some really amazing folks, yourself included, that you're working together with. And then you've also given us some kind of tips and tricks for even how to just release some of that energy, let that passion flow through you, both in your work and walking the dog. So this has already been a super valuable conversation. But I want to take us in a bit of a different direction now.
One thing before you do
Oh,
though is
please.
that
Oh,
you,
I should have
what
asked
you
you.
mean?
Did I?
No,
Did
no,
I?
no, no. The one thing is
Thinking.
you said something that I would love to build on is about, surrounding yourself with the right people. And I gotta admit, sometimes I do get like a little like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And then, but the people I'm surrounded by, I mean, Richard, most of them too. Has Annie given up? No. Is Lindsay Baker like given up? No. And, like there's all these people I'm surrounded with where I'm just like, well, I think we're all still moving forward, so I'm gonna keep going too. So the people you surround yourselves with is an important thing too.
And this is such an amazing community for really badass people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Awesome. All right. So I want to invite you to the community garden portion of our
Hmm.
conversation,
Okay.
a bit of a different flow to our chat here. Have you ever done the rose, thorn, bud conversation framework before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'll give you a little preview here. So the rose is something that you've observed in your life or your work that's been giving you inspiration today, in the recent past, but something that's current for you. The thorn is a challenge that you faced along the way. If
A
more
challenge
people,
that I faced what along the way? Yeah. Okay.
yep, along the way, either in your work or your life, etc. Recently, could be in the past as well. And then the bud here is hope for the future, what you see on the horizon as you look out. So I'm going to ask you these in order here again. Anthony, tell me what's really blossoming and fragrant in your world these days. You've already told me a lot of wonderful things, but what's particularly fragrant?
Well, I'm enjoying this executive director role,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm enjoying being the founder of something, and just choosing your own adventure. Right, is something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
really enjoying. Settling into my age in my career. I mean, I enjoy being where I am now. That's really seems to be blossoming. I'm feeling comfortable in my own skin right now, and I love that. I can't always say that I felt
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've been enjoying that. I'd say that's where I'm blossoming and experimenting, trying new things, and really enjoying life.
And really hitting your stride from my view.
Thank you.
I think you've been on a good stride, but I mean, I can see it happening in front of me. So it's amazing. Plus, you've got two young men growing up
I
and
do.
amazing adventures ahead.
I do. Really enjoy being a dad, and it's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun. And they're two amazing people, young men.
Mm. Being a former young man myself, what's one of the challenges or obstacles that you've faced along the way, either growing your family or growing your work or growing your life? What's been a challenge that you are either facing currently, maybe we can help with, or something that had really sapped your inertia?
Yeah. I think there's always challenges. I think in both spaces, materials and development, there's challenges every day. And it feels like I'm moving at a in mindful materials, it feels like I'm moving like 1,000 knots per second, because there's
Mm-hmm,
so
hmm.
much going on. So, and
Warp
then
speed.
yeah, warp speed, right? In state of price, there's always some obstacle, and it seems like I'm moving like a snail in that area. So, just kind of like the pace of change is pretty dramatic. Um, and honestly, I don't even know if I told you, but I had like a heart condition a few
No.
months ago that I had to deal with that I took me back a little bit, and I'm now much better and healthy. But sometimes I forget how much it kind of sapped me a little bit. But you know, that was
And
a big challenge that I had to deal with.
And I can imagine, hopefully, now you have more recognition for the need of self care and
Yeah,
managing
yeah, yeah,
stress levels and managing your physiology.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I can see that clearly. So, as you look through your lens out at the horizon, what's bringing you hope?
What's bringing me hope? I mean, there's in these environments that I'm working in, I come across people who are doing some really good work, really amazing work, and you can tell from the way the work that they're doing. It's not about the money. It's about the challenge and what they're trying to get accomplished, and that inspires me. That I'm always excited about that. I see where both my kids are. One studying quantum mechanics, another one, or computer science. Kind of dabbling in quantum science, whatever that means. Don't ask me about
I'm
that.
going to smile and nod.
Surprisingly, the other one, he's studying neuroscience, molecular biology, which, if I had to guess where they were both going at 10 years old, these weren't the fields that I think they thought they would be in. I find that inspiring.
Mm-mm.
I'm outgunned in terms of like, I can't help them with their homework anymore, but, you know,
Maybe they can help you with yours.
believe me, I thought about that a couple of times.
Okay, so we've talked about the rose, the thorn, the bud here in the community garden, but I'd love to get even into gardeners. Who are people that have inspired you along the way, who have tended to you, weeded you, and given you good
Hmm.
sunlight that helped really encourage who you are today?
I've had really good mentors actually. And I really encourage people to be mindful of who their mentors are because it does help out a lot. And no one's really like, I'm not talking about people who like get you your next big job, but just are there
Hmm.
to listen to you. And like, I still call people every day about, hey, I'm having this problem. Valerie Grubb, Andrew Jackson, Ashok Gupta, like people that are just, if I know if I pick up the phone, they're there to give me some advice. They listen a lot. Good mentors
Hmm.
listen a lot
Hmm.
and are rarely giving their own advice or listening a lot. And I've found that very, they're inspirational people that I feel comfortable going back to and stuff.
Do you find the mentor experience a two-way street?
I would like to think so. I don't know if they call me asking for questions, but I make it a point to pick up the phone and there for them and there for people when they call me, honestly. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, the other thing that I enjoy is, the being an adjunct professor at Columbia. Actually, it's a form that's really interesting. It is kind of a form of mentorship. I get exposed to these young folks, and I know I'm helping them with their studies and stuff. But I actually at times get very inspired by the kind of just the knowledge they bring to the classroom and the work they're willing to do for kind of what their goals are and stuff. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
keeps me young knowing that there's young folks out there who are still hungry to, get work done.
That perfectly answered the question I just asked, and even the one I haven't asked yet, which is who are you mentoring? You've got a great set of students here who are bringing you excitement and passion in their work, and you have, I imagine, an amazing opportunity to help promote them on and continue that enthusiasm. What other areas of your life are you a mentor?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I do have two boys. I mean, that's a little fatherhood's a little bit different than mentoring, but it's
Yeah,
close.
there's a lot of that there.
Yeah, yeah. And then, uh I think, and then I really do enjoy a good coaching session with people I work with. I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind sharing knowledge and enjoy doing that. Sometimes I have to
Um,
be, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my brain is just spinning with ideas and
Hmm.
questions, but particularly, and I hope I haven't interrupted you, but I'm really curious to ask about your boys and Sustain a Prize, and if you share like the inner workings and ideas that you have, even your scratch papers, like what does that conversation look like over the dinner table?
Well, Stefano built my website, and it's fun to talk about because it's just a different side of me that they see, and they're equally wondering why I'm doing this venture, this kind of venture at this age. But they're excited to help. And also they joke around with me because they don't like the name Sustainer Prize. Like they think it was a silly move, but we'll see. I
But
could have,
that gives a nice conversation.
I keep saying Google was a terrible name, but look how they turned out.
Show me a better plan and we'll talk. Well, that's amazing. And kind of answered that question I had around mentorship. I can see it clearly that you're showing your children what makes you tick and what excitement looks like in a professional career, what adventure looks like, what risk taking looks like, what building up an idea from scratch looks like. And I can only imagine that will carry them into their adult lives through spirits of entrepreneurship and spirit of belonging and community here. You're crafting the next generation. So don't miss that. I see it and it's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Richard. That's amazing. You're an amazing host.
I have
How
really
many have
good.
you done so far?
I think this is episode 32. I've got to get a few. I've got to
Do
get
you
a
feel
few
like you were this
posted out
good
on the
at
web.
episode 0 or episode 1?
Not at all. No, looking back, one, I didn't like hearing my own voice, and I still don't.
Hmm.
Actually, you and I kind of talked a little bit about dabbling into podcast land.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I'm
not
considering it.
something, yeah, it's not something I ever considered in my career. And it is opening some amazing doors to talk to my most favorite people in the industry. So it has gone a long way to helping me with my own my crippling imposter syndrome and the why am I here? I don't belong here
Yeah.
feeling, to now sitting with the people who I most enjoy, having really great conversations about their path and what took them here. And it's exciting for me to hear that, and share that moment. So it's come a long way since the first episode, but they've all
Yeah.
been amazing conversations. And I'm really proud to have this one here with you. We've been kind of dancing around the topics we could talk about, and it's been exciting even in the make ready, just learning about my peers and colleagues. I didn't know these things about you, Anthony. I've been working together for years.
Yeah.
And to find these elements of people that really activate them, is so similar to me and my story, but is so different from me and my story that it's so satisfying and gratifying. So
Yeah.
unending thanks to you for joining me.
Yeah. I think a lot about podcasting too, and I'm not sure if it's for the right reasons, but I just really wish I could recreate some of these. When I left Earth Justice, I was doing these like kind of fact finding, kind of learning journeys, what I'd call it. I mean, with some people that
Mm-hmm.
I've known or strangers that I've wanted to know. And sometimes we'd go on for, an hour and a half or something. I've had conversations over, a glass of wine with some folks. And, 2 hours later, I was like, man, how do you convey what I just learned to a simple talking point to other people? You
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, I just wish sometimes where, you could recreate that environment and let people listen in on, kind of inspiring conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to podcasting, but, can you imagine if just at the dinner table, there was some kind of way to, you know, what I'm trying to say, right? So,
Well,
yeah,
you're hitting this perfectly for me, and even in our conversation, just to prep for today, this is
yeah,
your and my conversation. We can take it anywhere we want, and we can explore anything we want, and we just happen to be recording it. And so, even if it was an audience of one, I love doing this because I get to find out such amazing things about such amazing people.
yeah. Did we even like touch anything we prepped for? Or did,
We danced around a lot of different things.
okay,
But let me start to wrap up our episode here because
sure.
I could keep talking to you for a while. So, one of my last questions here is a grounding question based in nature. Where do you go to recharge yourself? Where do you go to reconnect and find yourself again in nature?
Yeah, that's right. You did ask me this. I enjoy. I have such good fond memories about going to Phoenicia. Black Bear Camping Ground. It's just a
Mm,
car camping area. It's by far not the most um, unique adventure that I've had or anything. I've traveled a few places before, but that seems to be the funnest thing. And I was trying to think about why, and I think it's because I'd have the family in the car. You drive 2 hours and simple drive, you camp, and I think always in those camping trips, whether it was just with one son or two sons or the whole family, there's always a moment where one of them has had a question on their mind that they just haven't had the courage to get
mm,
around to, and then like I don't know what it is about the car, but there's always an interesting conversation in the car. Or, when you're camping and you know, you're running out of things to say. It gets harder and harder to conceal something you've been wanting to ask. You know what I mean? Like, and so
okay,
I
I'm
just
gonna
enjoyed that.
Yeah, let's tease
Yeah.
that out. I think that you've
Yeah.
really hit on a good point. So there's a boredom factor there, because you have to get over the hump of boredom. Like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in this car and I don't want to go camping. And then you're there and you're like, I don't want to be here. And then,
In the car, I don't
like,
think it's boredom. I think it's a thing of moving and it feels less intimidating, right? The person you're trying to
mhm.
ask the question or you want to find something else not staring right at you. And there's no it's not as much judgment or anything because the other person's concentrating on driving and everything. I think there's a sense of the you become more equals as pilot and co-pilot.
Ooh, oh, and particularly as pilot, co-pilot, because that's not voices from the back seat. That's your
Yeah,
co-pilots in
no. Right.
Oh, that's really
Exactly.
interesting. Okay. And then you've got, hobo dinners and making s'mores and whatever campfire meals that you come up with. But there's an element of creativity that's needed. There's an element of, there's always a little bit of risk and danger with axes, tools, and fire. There's something very
Well,
elemental.
we're talking about car camping. There's element of danger is kind of overstated, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But you're outside
Yeah,
and, you have to contend with nature actively seeking you.
fair, yeah.
And elements and whatnot. And so there's a lot of bonding moments there, but I can see that because I've experienced it in my own life. But what I like most about what you've said here are those questions that weren't expected, but come up out of the blue and end up revealing an enormous conversation that carries you through the weekend or shows the maturity in your children or even their thought processes and patterns and their life experiences. And hey, dad, what about this? And your ability to answer
Yeah.
some of your experiences. That's a powerful moment in a child's life. But tell me a little more about that moment and its power as the adult and as the parent.
Yeah. I think yeah, it's interesting. I think that here's what I would say about that, right? So yes, there is a response to nature and kind of the boredom and the calmness where a young child or anybody just feels more empowered to be able to ask whatever they want. And I've always thought about it that way. And then but I was recently realizing also they're also less intimidated by my answer because I'm calmer. I'm in a different state of mind and
Mm.
I'm willing and more open to have a conversation. It's not that I'm not, at home or something, but just the buzz of the day, the hum of the day, right? You don't interpret things the same way you would when you're around a campfire.
Mm.
And the reason why I just kind of say it like that is because I also think about that practice when I'm really vexed by a problem is trying to find a way to get to that altered state where I can be more open
Mm.
and
Mm.
and listen to what people are really asking of me or something. You know what I mean? Like, and I think executives maybe are leaders, not executives, leaders. If you're in a situation where you're a leader, the being in a good state and altered state to listen and be open so that you can really hear the problem and give a sincere offering of a solution or perspective of that problem is sometimes gold. Like
Mm.
if you can get there, you get to solving problems much quicker and much more effectively than our like was it knee jerk reaction to a problem, where it's only
Mhm,
halfway
mhm.
solved or a third of the way solved. So that's why I bring it up.
I think that's like the central theme of our whole. I think you gave me goosebumps actually. That was a powerful statement there. And I think that it really summarizes today's conversation. It shows up in many places in your life that I can see that power of listening, the power of hearing, the power of being open to those ideas that you weren't expecting, and the ability to approach them in a way that is constructive and useful and helpful for the person who made that request to you. So I can see that in the stories that you've been telling me here today. And I think out of all of our conversation, that's the best gem that you've given me here is that ability to be open to ideas and excited for the unexpected.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, this is amazing. So, Anthony, any final thoughts?
No, just that so great to see and hear you and think you're this thing that you're doing, that positive, love it.
It's hard for me to say too.
Podsitive, but I think it's really helpful, and I think you're doing a great job. Keep going.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I hope you'll come back and be my guest again. There's
Anytime.
so many
I know
things.
that project that you're working on. I'm excited about it. I won't give it away or anything, but call me on that if you want to.
Sounds amazing. Well, great. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me here on Net Positive. You really are the living proof of our tagline here that big changes start small. And I see that across the course of your career. You've given some really great examples of that golden thread that tie your experiences together: listening, empathy, openness, excitement, passion, community, transparency, space, time, materials. Like, we've covered so many topics, even just in today's short conversation. So I'm looking forward to this time, or was looking forward to this time and every other future time that we have together. And just unending thanks. And I'm so excited to see you here on Net Positive again and out in our community.
Likewise. I hope we see each other in person.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And for those listening and watching at home, please do join us again for our next episode. Like and subscribe. And we'll see you again here on Net Positive.
Okay. See you, Richard.
Thanks, Anthony.